UFO circle sparks theories. Mysterious circular structure near Area 51 sparks UFO landing site theories. A mysterious giant circle was just discovered near Area 51, and the internet thinks it could be linked to UFOs. A strange circular formation discovered near the infamous Area 51 has reignited internet theories about UFOs, secret government experiments, and hidden extraterrestrial activity in the Nevada desert. Now it's time to break down every angle of this story on our AI podcast.
There is something inherently unsettling about finding a perfect geometric shape out in the wild.
Oh, absolutely. It just feels wrong.
Right. Like if you were out hiking and you see a jagged rock or an irregular gorge, that is just nature doing its thing. We expect that.
Yeah, random erosion, weather, all of that.
Exactly. But if you see a flawlessly carved square in a cliffside or a perfectly spherical boulder resting in a valley, your brain immediately flags it.
It screams intention.
Yeah.
I mean, we are biologically hardwired by evolution to look for design, right? To find patterns in the chaos of nature.
For sure.
When we see perfect geometry, our immediate instinct is that someone or something was here. And they built this for a very specific reason.
And that feeling multiplies exponentially when that perfect geometric shape is sitting, just 4 miles northeast of the most secretive military base on the planet.
Yeah, that definitely changes the context a bit.
It really does.
Right.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are exploring this bizarre satellite image from the Nevada desert.
It really is a crazy image.
It is. And this image, it serves as the ultimate intersection between classified Cold War military history, human psychology, and modern internet mythology.
It hits all the major touch points.
By the end of this deep dive, you're going to understand exactly why our brains are so eager to fill government secrets with science fiction, and how sometimes the classified truth is just as wild as the alien theories.
Honestly, the democratization of satellite technology has entirely changed how we interact with these mysteries.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you used to need a multi-million-dollar reconnaissance satellite to see the surface of the Nevada test range. But now, anyone with a smartphone can meticulously scan the landscape while they are, waiting in line for coffee.
That is such a good point. Okay, let's unpack this. Picture yourself endlessly scrolling through Google Earth.
We've all been there.
Right. You are zooming in on random parts of the globe, and you drift over to the barren landscape of Nevada.
Just miles of empty sand and scrub.
Yeah. And just outside the perimeter of Area 51, at exactly 37 degrees, 16 minutes, 34.5 seconds north, and 115 degrees, 45 minutes, 18.6 seconds west.
That is some very precise internet sleuthing.
Hey, we bring the coordinates on this show.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that exact spot, you stumble across something that completely stops you in your tracks.
Because it defies the natural topography of the desert entirely.
It really does. You have miles of dark, uneven scrubland, and then suddenly there is this massive, near-perfect circle carved right into the earth.
And the color difference is jarring.
Yeah, the dirt inside this circle is incredibly pale. It is almost bleached looking.
Right, which creates this aggressive, stark contrast against the untouched desert around it.
It looks like someone took a massive cookie cutter to the desert floor. And right in the dead center of the circle is a smaller, raised mound.
A very deliberate mound.
Very deliberate.
Yeah.
It is big enough that even from space, you can see it casting a very distinct shadow.
Which means it functions as a massive visual beacon. It is expressly engineered to draw the eye away from the natural landscape.
But the physical detail that really pushes this from just strange to deeply eerie is the road.
Oh, the road to nowhere.
Yes, there is a narrow dirt road stretching miles across the wasteland, making a beeline straight for this formation, and then it just abruptly ends right at the edge of the circular clearing.
Full stop.
Nowhere else to go. It looks exactly like a runway leading to absolutely nowhere. If this isn't meant for something to land on, why build a road that just suddenly stops at a perfect circle in the middle of nowhere?
It is a totally valid question.
So naturally, social media took one look at this and lost its collective mind.
Of course they did.
People were immediately calling it an alien crash site or, a hidden UFO landing zone connected to whatever experiments are happening at Area 51.
Which is an understandable leap. It is a jarring visual. It is the ultimate Rorschach test.
A Rorschach test in the desert.
Exactly. When you combine geographic proximity to Area 51 with a highly unnatural, unexplained geometric structure, people's minds will instantly jump to the most sensational conclusion.
Right, aliens.
Aliens. But to actually understand what we are looking at, we have to stop looking at it from the ground and start looking at it from the sky.
Okay, pivoting to aviation.
Right. What's fascinating here is that the actual explanation replaces all that alien mythology with incredibly grounded, practical Cold War logistics.
So military history enthusiasts know exactly what this is.
Oh, yeah. Aviation experts and historians look at this and see standard operating procedure. This circle sits within the broader weapons test range east of Groom Lake.
So it is an active military zone.
Very active. It is an area that was used for decades for intense aerial weapons testing and pilot training.
Okay, so this wasn't a landing pad for a flying saucer.
Not even close.
It was a target.
A Cold War era bombing and radar calibration target.
I was really trying to wrap my head around the scale of it because the circle is absolutely massive.
It has to be.
Right. Because if you are a pilot miles up in the air going Mach 2, you need something huge and high contrast just to be able to register it for a fraction of a second.
Exactly.
It operates almost like an optometrist's eye chart, but scaled up for supersonic fighter jets.
That is a perfect analogy. The visual contrast of the pale dirt against the dark landscape, that is a strictly functional requirement for high-altitude visibility.
Just to make sure they can actually see what they're aiming at.
Right. But the real engineering ingenuity is actually in that raised mound in the center.
The bump with the shadow.
Yeah. See, during the 1950s and 60s, the military wasn't just dropping visual gravity bombs. They were testing early radar targeting systems and complex aerial sensors.
Okay, wait. How exactly does a pile of dirt calibrate a high-tech radar system? That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, right, but it all comes down to radar cross-sections.
Okay.
So radar works by broadcasting radio waves and then listening for the echo that bounces back. Flat desert sand scatters those radio waves unpredictably. It is a mess of static. But when you build a perfectly geometric raised mound of dense earth...
It creates a different echo.
Exactly. It creates a highly distinct radar return. When the radio waves hit that specific mound, they bounce back in a concentrated, recognizable pattern compared to the flat, pale dirt of the surrounding circle.
Oh, wow. So the pilot isn't just looking out the cockpit window trying to spot the pale dirt with their eyes.
No, not entirely.
Their electronic instruments are essentially seeing this three-dimensional bump in the middle of a flat plane.
Right.
Which allows them to lock on to a highly specific mathematical coordinate from, like, 40,000 feet up in the air.
You nailed it. And that shadow we talked about, the one cast by the mound.
Yeah, the one visible from space.
That provides crucial visual depth perception for optical sensors. Without the shadow from extreme altitudes, a flat circle just looks like a two-dimensional smudge.
So the mound gives the target three-dimensional geometry.
Exactly. And as for that dirt road leading to nowhere...
Yeah, the alien runway.
Right, well, that wasn't for aliens. That was the access road for the military bulldozers and maintenance crews.
Oh my gosh. Because they had to drive out into the middle of the desert to push the dirt back into a perfect mound after it got obliterated during a bombing test.
Every single time. Just mundane military maintenance.
Okay, but hold on. I have to push back here.
Go for it.
Because similar circular bombing targets are scattered all across the remote military zones of the Nevada desert.
That is true. There are dozens of them.
Right, there are dozens out there in the sand. So if this is just a standard military target, why does this specific circle generate so much internet hysteria? The internet isn't hyperventilating over a random radar mound near Tonopah.
It is entirely about real estate.
Location, location, location.
Yeah, exactly. The physical infrastructure of the target is routine, but its location is mythical. It sits in the shadow of Groom Lake, which is much better known as Area 51.
Right, the holy grail of conspiracy theories.
Because that facility is deeply entrenched in American lore.
Yeah, the base was established in 1955. But for decades, the U.S. Air Force refused to even acknowledge it existed.
They wouldn't say a word.
It was a literal black hole on the map. Billions of the classified tax dollars just vanished into it. Rumors of crashed spacecraft spread worldwide, and absolutely zero official information came out.
And an information vacuum of that magnitude is inherently unstable.
How so?
When official channels provide no data, human imagination naturally rushes in to fill the void with the most extraordinary narratives available.
And the narrative that completely overran that vacuum came in 1989.
Courtesy of Robert Lazar.
Yes, Bob Lazar. He goes on television and claims he was hired to work at a super-secret sector called S4, located just south of Area 51.
A very specific claim.
Extremely specific. And he didn't just claim they were testing experimental jets. He alleged he was actively studying extraterrestrial spacecraft and attempting to reverse engineer alien propulsion systems.
Right. He provided incredibly vivid descriptions of the technology. He detailed these sport model flying saucers, and even talked about elements that didn't exist on the periodic table at the time.
Is wild stuff.
Lazar's claims basically became the foundational text for modern UFO conspiracy lore.
But why did Lazar's story catch fire so quickly?
Goes back to that vacuum.
Exactly. Because the government stubbornly refused to say what they were doing out there, his story was like dropping a match in a dry forest of government secrecy.
That is a great way to put it.
People were ready and willing to believe anything because there was no competing official narrative to say otherwise.
But the thing is, the government's silence wasn't just bureaucratic stubbornness. It actually functioned as an incredibly effective, albeit entirely accidental, counterintelligence strategy.
Wait, are you saying the military actively benefited from the alien rumors?
Absolutely. Look at the geopolitical context of the Cold War.
Okay.
The primary objective at Groom Lake was developing cutting-edge aviation technology to counter the existential threat of the Soviet Union.
Right, the space race, the arms race, all of that.
Exactly. They were building the U-2 spy plane, the A-12 Oxcart, and eventually stealth aircraft.
Top secret stuff.
Right. So if the American public and the global media are absolutely obsessed with flying saucers, reverse-engineered alien drives, and little green men, what aren't they looking for?
Oh, wow. They aren't looking for classified radar-evading terrestrial jets.
The alien mythology provided the ultimate smokescreen. Every time someone reported a strange light in the sky over Nevada and blamed it on Martians, the military sighed in relief.
Because their secret was safe.
Because they knew the real secret, their highly classified aviation programs, remained completely secure from Soviet intelligence.
That is brilliant.
It really was. They were like, let the conspiracy theorists scream about UFOs because it means the KGB isn't realizing how close the U.S. is to achieving supersonic stealth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the scale of that terrestrial technology wasn't officially admitted until way later.
Right, not until 2013.
Yeah, 2013. The CIA finally declassified a 400-page report formally acknowledging the existence of Area 51.
A huge moment for historians.
And the entire report focused on those Cold War spy plane programs. But it contains a detail that is just staggering.
The UFO connection.
Yes. The testing of these highly classified planes, specifically the U-2 and the A-12, accounted for a massive percentage of the UFO sightings reported in the 1950s and 1960s.
It is incredible to see it in an official document.
I have the quote right here. The CIA report explicitly states, and I'm quoting this directly, high-altitude testing of the U-2 soon led to an unexpected side effect, a tremendous increase in reports of unidentified flying objects.
The mechanics of those sightings are absolutely fascinating. The physics behind why people genuinely thought they were seeing alien craft.
Walk us through that. Why did a plane look like a UFO?
It comes down to the aviation capabilities of the era. The U-2 and later the A-12 were regularly operating at altitudes above 60,000 feet.
Which for commercial and conventional military planes of the 1950s was completely impossible.
Right. Commercial airlines were maxing out way lower in the atmosphere.
Like maybe 20,000 feet.
Around there, yeah. So imagine you are an air traffic controller in 1955.
Okay, I'm at the radar screen.
You are tracking local flights, and suddenly you see an object on your radar traveling at an altitude your training dictates is technologically and biologically unfeasible for a man-made craft.
Your brain literally cannot process it as an airplane.
It breaks all the rules you know. And it wasn't just radar operators. Civilians were seeing these things from the ground with their bare eyes.
How? If it is 12 miles up.
This is where atmospheric optics come into play, specifically at dusk.
Okay.
When the sun dips below the horizon, the ground and the lower atmosphere get dark.
Right, it is twilight on the ground.
But if you have an aircraft flying 12 miles up in the stratosphere, it is so high up that it is still catching the direct rays of the sun.
Oh, that makes so much sense. So you have a highly reflective silver fuselage catching the setting sun, and it is illuminated against a darkening twilight sky.
Exactly. It would look like a brilliantly glowing object.
Like a star zipping across the sky.
Moving at tremendous speed, at an impossible altitude. To a civilian looking up from the Nevada desert, or even a commercial pilot flying 40,000 feet below it, that object defies all known laws of 1950s aviation.
The only logical conclusion left in their mind is that it has to be otherworldly.
It is a totally rational conclusion based on the limited information they had.
So what does this all mean?
Well,
I mean, if the CIA laid all their cards on the table in 2013, explained the U-2, explained the atmospheric lighting illusions, and confirmed the base was just a testing ground for spy planes, why didn't the alien theories stop?
that is the million-dollar question.
Why are we still looking at dirt circles on Google Earth in the late 2020s and debating UFO landing pads?
Because the 2013 declassification had a massive blind spot.
The timeline gap.
Yes. The CIA report confirmed the base's existence and thoroughly explained the operations of the 1950s and 60s, but it did not fully explain Area 51's operations after 1974.
They just left a 50-year timeline gap.
Pretty much. From 1974 onward, the official record remained incredibly murky. The government effectively opened the door just a crack to show the public the vintage planes, but kept the rest of the facility entirely in the dark.
And as we know, the human imagination rushes right back in to fill the void.
Every time.
That lingering gap of information post-1974 did a lot of heavy lifting for the mythology. But the way that mystique evolved over time is what I find so fascinating.
How do you mean?
Well, it morphed from this terrifying, highly classified Cold War black site full of paranoia into something completely different in the digital age. It became a viral internet joke.
Oh, the memification of Area 51. Yeah, the transition from Cold War fear to digital absurdity tells us a lot about modern sociology.
It really highlights how the public interacts with opaque institutions today. We saw this peak in 2019 with the internet phenomenon known as Storm Area 51.
I remember that so clearly.
Right. The viral Facebook event was literally titled, Storm Area 51, They Can't Stop All of Us.
So ridiculous.
Nearly 500,000 people jokingly pledged to invade the compound in a mass civilian raid to uncover the alien secrets.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the specific tactical plans proposed by the internet were just the epitome of mimetic culture.
Oh my gosh, yes. The event explicitly encouraged participants to sprint through the Nevada desert using the Naruto run,
Running like the anime character.
leaning forward with their arms trailing straight back behind them. The internet's logic was that by employing this anime running style, the crowd could move fast enough to outrun the bullets of the military perimeter guards.
It is so absurd.
It became one of the biggest global memes of the entire year.
But the real-world consequences were actually quite tense. The creator of the event, Matty Roberts, realized the joke had spiraled completely out of his control.
He panicked.
He really did. He had to go on local Nevada television, KLAS-TV, just to put out the fire. He was explicitly stating the entire idea was intended as a satirical joke.
Because he was genuinely terrified that this viral meme was going to bring down the wrath of actual federal law enforcement agencies onto his doorstep.
Which is a valid fear, because while the internet was sharing memes, the perimeter security at Groom Lake operates with lethal seriousness.
It is the ultimate collision of military severity and internet absurdity. The profound irony of that moment is staggering to me.
Wow.
You have a facility conceptualized by the most serious, paranoid minds of the Cold War. A place built to protect against highly trained Soviet espionage networks and nuclear threats.
Right.
And decades later, the biggest perimeter security headache they have to deal with is 500,000 people threatening to anime run through their front gates.
You just cannot write a stranger reality. It perfectly illustrates how our relationship to the unknown has changed. We went from fearing the shadows to mocking them.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, why does this matter? Well, whether we are hyperanalyzing the shadows of a radar calibration dirt circle on Google Earth or plotting a mimetic invasion on a Facebook page, this whole story proves how desperate we are to find patterns.
We want a narrative that makes sense of the opaque.
We really do. And it is a powerful reminder to maintain critical thinking in an era of unprecedented information access.
It is so incredibly easy to fall into the trap of the sensational, especially when you have a device in your pocket that can zoom in on any anomaly on the planet.
Right. But as we've seen today, sometimes a mysterious alien landing pad is really just a functional sandbox for a radar test.
And the atmospheric physics of a high-altitude spy plane catching the sunset is often a much more fascinating reality than the sci-fi alternative.
The truth is usually a little less flashy,
Yeah.
but historically it carries so much more weight.
Definitely.
But before we wrap up, there is one final thought that I keep coming back to based on these sources. Something for you to chew on after we sign off.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, we now know, objectively, from a declassified CIA report, that Cutting-edge 1950 spy planes flying at 60,000 feet were responsible for a massive wave of UFO sightings.
Right, because the public simply could not fathom the aviation technology of their own era. It looked like magic to them.
It defied everything they understood about physics and engineering.
Which forces you to wonder what highly classified, unacknowledged military technology is flying above us right now, today, in 2026.
Exactly. What drones or atmospheric phenomena or propulsion tests are creating the unexplained UFO sightings of our current era.
Sightings that probably won't be officially explained to the public until the declassification reports of 2076.
It really makes you wonder. The next time you see a perfect geometric shape carved into the desert wild or a strangely moving light high up in the night sky, maybe you aren't looking at visitors from another world.
Maybe you're just looking at a secret we won't be allowed to understand for another 50 years.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Catch you next time.
Okay, one question for you. Why do unusual discoveries around Area 51 continue to spark UFO conspiracy theories even when experts provide military explanations for structures found in the Nevada desert? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.